Hey guys, it's National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video on one of my earliest games. So actually this one is in the same tournament in the last one. So I thought it'd be nice. So last game I was playing good old Alton and I played the black side. And this was the game right after. This was round 4, right? So I played this guy named Pt.2 and he was more or less one of the top seeds in the tournament. So of course I was looking to win this game, right? So, okay. As you see here, I did start off with pawn to e4. Then my opponent develops the knight, and this is called the Alekhine defense, right? So, black provokes this e5 push. He gets his knight over, and now I play c4, and I really want to shoo him away. Now, usually the common move is d4 followed by d6, knight f3, g6, something like this, right? Or maybe like c6, something like this along these lines. So, okay. So what I did in the game was I played c4. Okay, I really wanted to shoo his knight away. So I was thinking knight b6, c5, knight d5, and something like bishop c4, something like that, e6, d4, d6, something like that was going to happen, but instead he played knight f4. And that kind of shocked me because it gave more time to develop the pawns. So I played d4. He brought his knight back. I brought my bishop up, like following the opening rules, right? You see, I'm really controlling this square and these squares, and we're really taking advantage of him. Well, okay. So, my opponent plays e6, finally an attempt to maybe gain some space with possibly d6. And then I develop my knight, follow the development principles. He develops his knight, and if I were now playing the game, right, I would think, okay, he's sort of underdeveloped on this side, and I have a lot of space to work with. So this might be an advanced move, but I would play the move h4. And the reason why I would play the move h4 is because I'm threatening h5, right? So because I'm threatening this pawn push right here, if he chooses to play h5, I'll willingly take this. He takes back, and I could play something like d5. Or I could play something like queen d3, right? All possible, intending to attack this pawn. So let's look back at the move h4 again. Now, let's say he followed his plan and wanted to stick in the center, right? d6. I'd continue to play h5. He moves his knight back. Notice how I'm getting a lot of space, and he's really cramped up in the center, right? He's not well developed. So I would play something like castles. And even though it may seem that maybe he'll get some attack going here once this is all solved, I'm more concerned about the space, right? How much space I have here, how much space I have here. So in this case, if we look at it from a space perspective, white has a better position. Okay, so let's get back to the game. So instead of playing the h4 move, I decided to play bishop out, following development, right? Sticking to the beginner's principles that we talked about. So he plays bishop b4, development, yeah. And in this case, I made a little bit of an inaccuracy. I retreated my bishop. And the thing is, this bishop is one of the better bishops for me because it can come to g5, it can help support these pawn pushes, right? It can help control these key squares, while his bishop is kind of like an outside player, right? He's really looking to break with this, but this bishop doesn't really do much, and so by playing this move, I've really exchanged one of my more powerful bishops. So we trade, queen takes, castles, castles, and now he chooses to break in the center. And now I play this interesting move. I really didn't think my 800 rating self would do this, but I played bishop e4. Now the intention behind this move will be revealed in the following moves. So I take the knight. Notice the sequencing, because if I take back like this, he can take the pawn and just gain an extra pawn. But now I take the defender first. Takes, knight takes, pawn takes. And now he has these doubled pawns, something that I was looking forward to, I think. So bishop here, he's trying to activate this bishop, but this move b3 really cements it. He's kind of closed down, he's kind of shut down, right? So he plays the move queen e7. He doesn't want to trade. He knows I'm having the better endgame. My knight here, knight here, knight here, right? So I play the knight up, and then he moves his rook out. And now the more accurate move to put my queen would be here, because what I did in the game was queen c2, but maybe this allows like some sort of queen c5 magic, or attacking the pawn in some way, or even, I don't know, allowing him to activate this a little, right? So by doing queen e3, now if he plays the same thing, I could play like knight e4 and gang up on the pawn somehow. But even this is met by rook d4, so might have to be careful. So I guess we could start with the rook out, challenging the rook, and then playing my idea of knight e4. So okay, I played queen c2 in the game, and he played queen g5. And this move kind of made me happy because I knew I could defend the pawn and attack his queen now. So he moves his queen back, which basically means he's wasted a move, and now I've made a move of progressing. Now I bring this rook out. Queen check, king in the corner, bishop. Now, you see this bishop isn't really doing much, right? Because it's restricted by this structure. And so this knight, as you'll see, it's eventually going to dominate these squares. So knight here, he puts his queen back, and now I get into my comfort zone. I attack for checkmate, but I also look for him to weaken one of his squares. So in the game, he does play this g6 move. Now I get back to this square. Now I'm eyeing the f6 square, right? This is sort of like a positional grind. So now when I'm looking, this bishop looks a little bit clumsy, right? So it's all about this good knight versus the bad bishop. How I outplayed my opponent with just the simple knight. And by maneuvering the knight, right, you could see this was the square, and then I came here, provoked a weakness, and then came back to hop into here. So this was my goal. And then he moves his king over. Now I'm thinking, what is the ideal placement of the queen? And I thought, okay, I really want to get here, followed by to h3 to h6. Something like that. I was eyeing for that kind of setup. So he traded. He played here. At the time, I think I thought this was one of the best moves for him because I didn't see what else he had to do since I was going for the d file really quick. So I played this rook move. And I'm trying to keep the trade in my favor. So I keep controlling the file. And he does take. I take. And he goes back. Now I'm thinking, okay, he can never come out because once he comes out, I'll have the checkmating threats. And even though his bishop may have flow, this knight really restricts the power of the queen. So in this position, it looks like as if I'm playing against a powerless queen. And indeed, you can see that I was trying to get my setup here again, right? Queen to the h file. But okay, he senses my plan and he plays here. But he falls into this alternate trap of mate. So I play queen check. He moves his king up. And the good old snuck and tug. Right? So it's really interesting how the piece that really won me the game was this knight. Because you saw like this knight really, instead of coming here, right? I already knew at this point, this knight, if we came here, if we really wanted to restrict the piece, we could play here, but he would have like opportunities to activate the bishop. So that's why I didn't play there. But instead, I went for the provoking strategy, right? I really wanted to find a weakness that I could really devour on, and that's exactly what he allowed in the game. So after this, I think he could have actually played this f5 move. And some of you may know that there's such a concept called en passant, which is I can capture the pawn. But after he captures the pawn, now all of a sudden his queen is guarding this square. And it's not so easy for me, right? So if we look at the f5 move, right, it makes it harder for me because although this bishop is temporarily disabled, it can really come out at any time. So I would say that if he had found the f5 move, I think he would have been okay. But it's hard to tell since this knight really has a lot of power over things. So, okay. Overall, I would say I played pretty well, but I wasn't sure if this bishop e4 idea was the most concrete. Because I know I was looking for the pawn structure, as you saw, this double pawn structure, and the fact that he developed his bishop to this side was really the thing that hindered his development. And there's not really much to say, the knight really dominated this square, right? Once he got on this square, I knew we were winning the game because at this point, the queen is really a nowhere to go situation. I could play queen here and not have to worry about any of this counterplay because I will always have this back rank. And so hopefully you did learn something from one of my earliest games. And thank you so much. So tune in to the next video.